Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. It is Tuesday morning and I've gotten myself back together. And so we're going to dive into chapter 22 this morning. We find that Jesus is continuing to offer parables to explain the kingdom of God. And he begins chapter 22 with the parable of the wedding banquet. And what happens in this parable is a king is having a wedding feast, and he sends his servants out to invite the community to be a part of it. And what happens is that people have their excuses. I'm going to go back to my family. I'm going to go back to work. And then some of his servants were even abused along the way for offering this invitation. And then, so when the servants come back and tell the king all of this, he's like, well, they're ungrateful for what I'm doing for them. So just go invite anybody in the street. And so that's what he did. He goes out, the servants go out and invite just the good. It says in here they invite the good and the bad, anyone that they've found, and so that the hall would be filled with wedding guests. And then we have this really interesting bit that happens. And so let's think about it for a moment. So the picture is the kingdom of heaven. So God is inviting all these people to be a part of it, but they decline to be a part of the kingdom of heaven. And so then God then opens it up to even more people to come to it. And this is what happens. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there was not wearing a wedding robe. And he said to him, "Friend, how did you get in here without a wedding robe?" And he was speechless. Then the king said to the attendants, "Bind him hand and foot and throw him into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen." It's kind of like disconcerting to hear this. Like, well, didn't you just invite everybody to be a part of the banquet? And yes, everybody has been invited to be a part of the kingdom of heaven. But there are certain things you have to do to prepare to be a part of it. You can't just get in with your everyday behaviors, and you still have to prepare yourself. And then, the idea of the wedding garments, that you would have taken a bath, you would have prepared yourself, anointed yourself with oil, you would have put your clothes on, you would have been ready. You knew where you were going, what you were being invited to. And so there's still some honor and respect that has to happen along the way. And so there's just these levels of, one, we might reject the offer. And so we have those folks to kind of, how do we help them figure out what they're missing out on? But then those people who accept the invitation, but then they don't do the work that's needed to truly experience the fullness of the kingdom of God. And I think about this in the sense, like, yeah, folks come to church on Sunday morning, but then are they doing their weekly Bible study? Are they spending time in small groups to grow deeper? Are they serving in the community? Are they doing everything else that helps prepare them for this banquet? So something to definitely consider in your own relationship with God, that there's still preparation that's needed. So as he continues on, we know that Jesus is headed to the cross right now. So the Pharisees and Sadducees and all of them are in high gear. And they come up to him asking him about paying taxes. Like, should we be paying taxes? And Jesus does this wonderful move where he goes, give me a coin. And he's like, whose head's on the coin? And it's, of course, the emperor's. And so he's like, well, give to the emperors what's the emperor's, and give to God what is God. And so then we have to ask the question, what is God's? What is it that we're supposed to be giving that is God's? And that's their vows, our membership vows, our prayers, our presence, our tithes, our witness, and I forgot something in there, our talents. and our skills and all that fun stuff are what we are supposed to offer. And are we really offering that? Yeah, our money goes to taxes, but God's given us a lot more than just money. And so how are we giving of our full self back to God is what's going on in here. Then, of course, we get into a really interesting conversation. The Sadducees now have to question Jesus in this chapter, and they want to know about the afterlife. See, they don't believe in the resurrection. They don't believe in the afterlife. And so, knowing that Jesus has all these ideas, they challenge him. And so they ask, a woman is married off to a man, but she doesn't have any kids. And he dies, and then she's married to the next brother, and he dies, and she's childless. And this happens with 7 brothers. And their question is, well, whose wife is she then? And I think Jesus is at one of these moments where he just goes, whoa, no, you don't understand the kingdom of God. She belongs to no one, that no one possesses her. It's like, you guys, you think that's of this world. This idea of possessing another person is of this world, not of God's world. And then he goes on to say one step further, why are you worried about the dead? I mean, you guys don't even believe in this stuff. So we remember that God was always claimed to be the God of living. So start thinking about this life that you're in right now. That's who God really wants to be involved with, are those who are living. So don't worry about the afterlife. Kind of focus on the here and now, as he's saying. And, the questionings continue. So now the Sadducees and the Pharisees have all questioned, and now a lawyer comes up and says, what's the greatest commandment? And this is one of my favorites, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and mind, and then love your neighbors. And upon these commandments, you can hang the rest. Like, if you just follow those 2, the rest of them will happen naturally. And so you can just see Jesus is just like teaching and clarifying that love is so important to his message that he offers. And then again, we go into this other kind of tricky question that Jesus is asked about. Jesus says, like, my turn to ask you a question. And so Jesus asks them, he goes, like, who is the Messiah? And whose son is he? And everybody says, oh, well, he's the son of David. And then Jesus kind of like, I'm going to push this, He goes, well, then why did David say that the Messiah was Lord? Because a father would never call his son Lord, because he's the Lord. The father, David, would be the Lord if his son was, and David was calling the Messiah Lord. So Jesus is kind of saying, the Messiah is not the son of David. The Messiah is the Son of God. So he's doing this he's pushing everybody, and we know this because we're coming at it from after the fact. But what I think is important when I look at this as a whole is, how often are we trying to ask questions to trip up Jesus or trip up our understanding of our beliefs? Are we challenging Jesus so that we don't have to do the hard work? Are we, what are we doing to kind of put a block in the way of our own relationship with Jesus? Do we create friction through some of the questions we ask? Or do we not accept the answers that are given to us? We ask the question, we get an answer, and then we don't like it. And so, like these Sadducees and Pharisees, they go back and try to find another question to trip it up because we don't like the answer, or maybe the answer's too simple, or maybe it's too complicated, or whatever. But so I just think it's interesting because there have been times I've just run into people, no matter, even if you give them the answer, it's not enough. and they're just trying to find ways to trip people up because there's something preventing them from wanting to accept this invitation. And it's scary and it's hard. And so I invite you to consider, where are you in all of this? Are you someone who's ready to join the wedding banquet and you're getting your clothes ready and you're ready to go? Or are you just trying to find a list of questions that you can just berate Jesus with and not really accept what he's been teaching? And so where are you at getting ready for the feast? Thanks for joining me today, Pastor Amanda, with Hope, Faith, and Joy, and I'll see you tomorrow as we look at chapter 23.